Shalom, my name is Omer Eshel. I'm the director of the Israel Government Tourist Office Midwest Region. I'd like to thank you for tuning in today to watch a series that I made by the name The Bible Come to Life. For many of us, the Bible is a tool to understand who we are and to really dive in to what we really believe in and to look to the core of our faith. But sometimes we see the Gospels as a story. The Bible Come to Life, it is a 12-episode series, which today you will see 6 of them, that dives in to that question of where these stories really happen and if they really happen. In this series today, you will find the actual locations where the stories that we grew up on, that build who we are, that form our soul, were taking place. I hope you will enjoy our show. Shalom, and welcome to The Bible Comes to Life. Join us as we explore the stories of the Bible and experience them where they actually happen in the land of Israel. I'm Omer Eshel, Director of the Israel Government Tourist Office Midwest Region, and your host. Today, we will talk about what I consider to be one of the most beautiful places in the land of Israel, the Sea of Galilee. This is the place where Jesus encountered his first followers, his first disciples, and where he performed most of his miracles. And today, when you will visit, you can experience the Galilee as Jesus did 2,000 years ago. The Sea of Galilee, which is actually a freshwater lake, is known by a variety of names in the Bible. In the Old Testament, it is called the Sea of Kinneret. In Luke, it is called the Lake of Gennesaret, coming from the Greek version of the word Kinneret. It is the largest lake in Israel and one of the largest in the region. But it is a Middle Eastern version of a lake, meaning that it is a pretty small lake, around 5.5 miles wide and 9 miles long. But in the Middle East, this is one of the largest lakes. It is situated on the north side of Israel, bordered on the east by the Golan Heights, on the north by the Jordan River, on the west by the Galilee Hills, and on the south by the Jordan Valley. We read about Jesus' first encounter with his disciples in Matthew 4. And Jesus, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw 2 brothers, Simon, called Peter, and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. Then he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." They immediately left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, he saw 2 other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, in the boat with Zebedee their father, mending their nets. And he called them, and immediately they left the boats and their father and followed him. The Sea of Galilee in the 1st century AD was a very interesting place. It was in the middle of 2 worlds, the Jewish world on the west side and the pagan world on the east side of the lake. Being one of the largest lakes in the area, it was surrounded by fishing communities. And fishing was the main industry of the area. So we can understand why Jesus came here to find fishers of men. Let us turn to Mark 4:35. That day, when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side, leaving the crowd behind." They took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious storm came up, and the waves broke over the boat, so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. Now the same route across the lake described in Mark 4 is an active travel route between Gennesaret on the west side of the lake and Ma'agan on the east side. Up to this day, boats cross on this route from one side to the other following the fish. And every day in the afternoon, the east side of the lake becomes very stormy because of the winds. So today, when you sail on this east side of the Galilee, you will see the same storm as described in Mark. The story comes to life before your very eyes. And you can imagine the boat carrying Jesus and his disciples sailing along the same type of storm that you are witnessing. Today, at Genosar, you can visit an extraordinary finding. In 1996, the Israel Antiquities Authority found a fishing boat dating back to the time of Jesus. It was found intact in the water, which itself is a miracle, since wood typically disintegrates very quickly in fresh water. Today, you can see that same boat that sailed on the lake during Jesus' life. And that maybe, just maybe, is the same boat that we read about in Mark. And finally, we read about Jesus preaching at the Galilee in Luke 5. One day, as Jesus was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, the people were crowding around him and listening to the word of God. He saw at the water's edge 2 boats, left there by the fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from the shore. Then he sat down and taught the people from the boat. When you go today to Genosar and stand at the Sea of Galilee, you see the shape of the bay itself, how the area cannot accommodate a lot of people, and why Jesus had to go on Simon's boat and sail a little bit into the lake in order to talk to the masses. The word Genosar is actually built from 2 Aramaic words, Ganei and Sar, meaning the garden of the minister. This refers to the very fertile land in the area, but is also an analogy for Jesus' ministry and the way he cultivated disciples from the most fruitful part of the land, the Galilee. So today, when you visit Genosar and you see the bay, imagine yourself standing there among thousands of followers and hearing Jesus preach the word from that small boat. Tadka, which is in Aramaic the name of the place. It's also called in Hebrew Ein Sheva, or 7 springs. It is a fertile plateau that was uninhabited during the time of Jesus. This is why Jesus chose it as the site of the miracle of the fish and loaves. He could gather together a large multitude of 5,000 people in this place without having to contend with already existing structures and inhabitants. We read in Mark 6:35, when the day was now far spent, his disciples came to him and said, "This is a deserted place, and already the hour is late. Send them away, that they may go into the surrounding country and villages and buy themselves bread, for they have nothing to eat." But he answered and said to them, "You give them something to eat." And they said to him, "Should we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give them something to eat?" But he said to them, "How many loaves do you have? Go and see." And when they found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. Then he commanded them to make them all sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in ranks, in hundreds and fifties. And when he had taken the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to the heaven, blessed and broke the loaves, and gave them to his disciples to set before them. And the 2 fish he had divided among them all. So they all ate and were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of fragments and of the fish. Now those who had eaten the loaves were about 5,000 men. Today, when you go to Tadka, you will see a mosaic representing this miracle of loaves and fish. You will visit an ancient Byzantine church that commemorates the event, and you will see the green grass around you, and you will be as one of the 5,000. You can close your eyes and sit on the green grass, facing the lake, and imagine that you are being fed by Jesus and that you are witnessing His miracle. Let's talk about how the ritual of baptism came to be. In Judaism, one of the most important mitzvahs or commandment is to baptize oneself, to clean oneself. This commandment comes out of the realities of Israel's very hot climate and the need to stay clean in order to guard against disease. In the Second Temple period, there was a community of Jews called the Essenes who lived in the Negev and Judean desert, primarily at a place called Qumran. The Essenes practiced an ascetic lifestyle, which included an emphasis on the commandment of cleansing. There were over 13 mikvahs or ritual baths found in Qumran, in an area which sees less than 2 inches of rain per year. In the 1st century AD, John the Baptist tried to join the Essene community at Qumran. Although it is believed that he only stayed with the community a short time, he was so moved and inspired by this commandment of cleansing that when he left Qumran, he shared it with everyone he met. As we read in Mark 1 verse 4, John came baptizing in the wilderness and preaching a baptism of repentance for the remission of sins. And we continue in verse 9. It came to pass in those days that Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. If we look today at the place of Jesus' baptism, called Yardenit, we see it is situated right at the southern tip of the Sea of Galilee, at the place where the Jordan River flows out of the Galilee on its way to the Dead Sea. It makes a lot of sense that Jesus, when he was coming down from Galilee, would stop in this place to be baptized by John. The topography of the land dictates that the main road that Jesus took to get to Jerusalem, the Via Rex, or the Road of the Kings, went through the Jordan Valley, and the site of Yardenit lies right off this road. If we turn to Luke 3, verse 21, we read, "When all the people were baptized, it came to pass that Jesus was also baptized, and while he prayed, the heaven was opened." Today, when you go to Yardenit, you will put on a white baptismal gown and slowly descend the steps into the water. The same water that baptized Jesus, you will be baptized. You will feel your sins being washed away. You will feel clean as it is commanded in both Old and New Testament. You can feel the same feeling as our biblical ancestors and the same feeling as John and Jesus. The Mount of Olives is mentioned for the first time in 2 Samuel, when David flees from his son Absalom. We read in chapter 15, verse 30, "So David went up by the ascent of Mount of Olives. He wept as he went up, and he had his head covered and went barefoot. And all the people who were with him covered their heads and went up, weeping as they went up." The Mount of Olives is located in the east side of Jerusalem, overlooking the city. The view from the mountain was the first view of the city that every pilgrim coming from the east would have seen. In the Jewish tradition, the Mount of Olives is the place of the resurrection of the dead. As we read in Zechariah 14:4, "And in that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall be split in two, from east to west, making a very large valley. Half of the mountain shall move towards the north, and half of it towards the south." Accordingly, the Mount of Olives is one of the most sacred places in Judaism. The cemetery there is the largest and oldest Jewish cemetery in the world. You will find tombs here from 3000 BCE alongside tombs from today. It considered a great honor to be buried at the Mount of Olives, as those buried there are believed to be the first to be resurrected. This prophecy of the coming of the Messiah brings us to the New Testament, in which we read that Jesus' final days started on the Mount of Olives, which fulfill this prophecy. Along the side of the mountain, we find sites that mark events from the last days of Jesus. One of them is Dominus Flevit, the place where Jesus wept for the fate of Jerusalem in Luke 19, verse 31. Now, as he drew near, he saw the city and wept over it, saying, "If you had known, even you, especially in this your day, the things that make for your peace, but now they are hidden from your eyes. For days will come upon you when your enemies will build an embankment around you, surround you and close you in every side, and level you and your children within you to the ground." The church that stands on the site today is shaped like a tear, in reference to Jesus weeping. Another site, and probably one of the most amazing places in all of Jerusalem, is the Garden of Gethsemane. Gethsemane is a grove of olive trees situated on the lower slopes of the mountain. In Hebrew, it is called Gat Shmanim, meaning the place where olive oil is made. This is the same garden where Jesus prayed his last prayers. As it says in Matthew 26, verse 36, "Then Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to the disciples, 'Sit here while I go and pray over there.'" And the most amazing thing about it is that when you visit today, some of the olive trees you see are 2,000 years old, meaning that they are probably the same olive trees that were there when Jesus was there. These trees witnessed that fateful day and heard that prayer of Jesus. If we turn to John 19:38, we read, "Later, Joseph of Arimathea asked Pilate for the body of Jesus." Now, Joseph was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly, because he feared the Jewish leaders. With Pilate's permission, he came and took the body away. He was accompanied by Nicodemus, the man who earlier had visited Jesus at night. Nicodemus brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 75 pounds. Taking Jesus' body, the two of them wrapped it with the spices in strips of linen. This was in accordance to the Jewish burial custom. At the place where Jesus was crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden a new tomb in which no one had ever been laid. Because it was the Jewish day of preparation, and since the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there. Today, when you visit the garden tomb, you will see that it is built out of a hill with a small garden next to it. The hill looks like a human skull, and in Aramaic, the name of the place where Jesus was crucified is Golgotha, meaning skull. The site itself was only discovered in the 19th century. Up until then, Jesus' place of burial was believed to be the Holy Sepulchre, within the walls of the old city. And it is still considered to be the site of the burial by the Catholic and the Orthodox churches. But when you stand in the garden tomb today, you can see that it looks like the place described in John 19. There is a garden next to the hill, and you can imagine Nicodemus and Joseph going up the hill, taking Jesus down from the cross and placing him in the cave right underneath. You see a tomb from the Second Temple period that looks exactly as it is described in the good book. More importantly, we see that this site is well outside the walls of the old city. In Jewish tradition, a person cannot be buried anywhere within inhabited city, and the garden tomb is located in a place that did not sit within the city limits of Jerusalem during the time of Jesus. So based on all of this, we can say that this is most likely the site of the burial of Jesus Christ. The Garden Tomb is one of the most powerful and profound places in the entire world. It is a place where you can reflect on what happened on that most important day, the day that Jesus was taken down from the cross. You will be able to see the heel yourself, to see the skull shape with your own eyes, to walk around the same garden as described in the Bible, and imagine Jesus being covered with linen and spices. You'll go back in time and witness this moment. We will focus on two major places in the old city of Jerusalem. The main gates to the temple, today known as the Ophel or Southern Excavations, and the Herodian Street, which ends at the western entrance to the temple. If we look at the model of the Second Temple, which is located at the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, we can see the main doors of the temple from the southern end. Today, you can go and see those same stairs, which have been there for 2,000 years. The stairs leads today to what used to be the entrance to the Hulda Gate, the main entrance from the south into the temple. In the time of the Second Temple, the Levites, the priests, would ascend these stairs to enter to the holy places. And as they walked, they would sing songs of ascent. There are many such songs in the book of Psalms, and today we will listen to one example from Psalm 126. When the Lord brought back the captivity of Zion, we were like those who dream. Then our mouth was filled with laughter, and our tongue with singing. Then they said among the nation, the Lord had done great things for them. The Lord had done great things for us. We were glad. So today you can open the Bible to Psalm 126. Ascend the actual steps on the temple that the Levites walked on and that Jesus walked on, and sing the same song together with your family and friends. Another entrance to the temple was the Robinson Arch, which is situated on the western wall. That arch was a huge intersection that connected the Herodian Street with the upper entrance of the temple. Today, you can see the remains of the Robinson Arch, which was destroyed by the Romans in the Great Fire of 70 AD. You can visit today the end of the Herodian Street in the Davidson Center and see the debris of the actual temple, how the walls crumbled down in the Great War against the Romans and shattered on the street. Right across from the arch, there's a series of booths. We know from the Gospels about the booth at the foot of the temple, where Jesus cast the tables of the money changers in resentment of their evil ways. These are the same booths where the money changers sat. The Herodian Street is an amazing construct. The street leads from the Siloam Pool all the way down at the City of David, along the ravine, the Gai in Hebrew, up to the Temple Mount and the Hulda Gate. In August of 2011, the Israel Antiquities Authority, together with the City of David National Park, actually opened the beginning of the street. This is the same street that used to lead the pilgrims, including Jesus and his disciples, from the Siloam Pool, where they would purify themselves, up to the temple. Today, you can visit the Herodian Street at the City of David National Park. And what's amazing about this, that this is the only street in Jerusalem that had not been used for 2,000 years and stayed intact, because it was buried under the debris from the temple. So the people who walked on this street before us were from the Second Temple period, from the time of Jesus. So today, when you come to Jerusalem and you visit the Temple Mount and the southern and the western walls, make sure to bring with you the book of Psalms and sing as you go up to worship the Lord. The words of Psalms 126, Shir HaMa'alot, the Song of Ascent. Right here in Jerusalem, right here in Israel, where the Bible comes to life. Thank you for watching The Bible Come to Life. This show, this series, means dear to me, much more than on a government point of view, on a personal point of view. As someone who cherished the Bible and believes in the Bible, as someone who formed my life the same way as the Bible commands us. This series is actually to give us tools to understand better who we are and what we are all about. To give us tools to understand our biblical ancestors. Why are we doing baptism? Where it came from? Why are we having communion bread? Why Jesus decided to go to Mount Tabor for his transfiguration? Where is the story of Garden of Gethsemane, and what is Garden of Gethsemane? It is not just a name. It is a place of the olive press. By understanding that, we can understand who we really are. We can dive into the eyes of our biblical ancestors and to understand really what it's all about. If you would like to see more episodes of The Bible Come to Life, we're about to issue 6 more episodes. You can watch them online if you go to our website at www.goisrael.com. That's www.goisrael.com. And if you'd like to share with us your impressions, if you have any questions, if you go to contact us, please choose the Chicago office and I'll be sure to write you back any question, any remark, or any thought that you might have. This series is for you, for your families, for your friends, for us to understand where it all comes from. In the words of my prophet, my favorite prophet in the world, Isaiah, I always quote him, Isaiah 2:3, for out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. See this series, understand the word of the law, understand the word of the Lord and the law, and be one with the Bible. Only in Israel, where the Bible comes to life.